So let's talk about the ice cards. So I'm starting off with both ice legends, and like let's just talk about them at the same time, because they're obviously designed for each other. So we have Ultimecia, a category 8 witch, forward 5 CP, 9k. Ultimecia can't be chosen by your opponent's summons. When Ultimecia enters the field, remove up to 5 characters of cost 5 or more in your break zone from the game. When you remove one or more cards, choose the same number of characters as the cards you remove this way, dull them, and freeze them. Your opponent discards a card. And I'll also read out Griever. So Griever's a 6 CP 9k forward, also Cat 8, also category Mobius, which is kind of relevant. When Griever is put from the field into the break zone, you may search for one job witch and play it onto the field. Tap, select one of the two following actions. Choose a dull forward, opponent controls break it, and the really important one, your opponent discards one card, which is not limited to once per turn.
Yeah.
So the job witch, I think all the Ultimecias kind of suck except for this one. The I I know I made Pat probably cringe saying that because I know he loves
Yeah,
the
you
dark
triggered me.
Ultimecia, the dark Ultimecia. But the only other I think relevant witch is what
Oh yeah.
Matoya. Yeah.
Matoya, yeah.
So um yeah, I guess what do you guys think about either one of these cards? Honestly, I feel like they kind of go together.
Pat, you can go first. 'Cause I have a lot to say about these two. So,
All right, yeah, I'll go first. I think Griever is really really cool.
Hmm.
The discarding one card, as you said, not limited once per turn, but also not limited to your turn only. Previous effects we've had, like Unalesca, repeatable discards are, I think, typically locked to your turn and or once per turn.
Hmm.
The coolest thing you can do with Griever, anytime there's a stack on your opponent's turn, you can just make them discard it, and that's like so strong.
Yeah,
There's another ice card, Garland 9.
Garland 9. Yeah.
It makes a stack at the beginning of your opponent's main phase,
yep.
and if their hand is empty, or if they're going to draw two cards. If their hand is only two cards, and you have Garland 9 on the board, you can just make them discard one of the cards.
Yeah, if you have Rosa, you can make him discard too.
Or
yeah, exactly. Then that's a hard lock.
Three card combos
Like-
that lock you out of the game.
Yeah, so it's like that. That's just like a really cool interaction that didn't exist before in the game, I think. So,
Mhm.
Griever's really cool, and then the death trigger is like cherry on top.
yeah,
Um,
I think the death trigger is what makes this card not like a trap.
I agree.
well, yeah, it's what makes it worth the 6 mana, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to like 3 or 4 or something.
Yeah.
And then Ultimecia, as you said earlier, I prefer the Dark Ultimecia just for like the sort of death and taxes playstyle. This Ultimecia, again, very fit for like the Verstale Celsius sort of shell. The discarded card is just like the other cherry on top.
Yeah. Well,
And being able to play this like off of Griever is really good too.
I like the discard not being tied to how well it's tied to removing one or more. So if you only have Griever in the discard, you're still in your break zone, you still get the discard off of Ultimecia. So it's one of those things where like you play Griever and your opponent's going to be discarding a card no matter what, unless they have like Misc Dragon or something, right? Yeah. Emmanuel, you're gonna say something or?
No. Well, I mean, many things. But, I'm letting you talk about these cards first.
Yeah, I guess the really obnoxious thing that I think that Griever kind of enables, but I don't think is going to be like the way that you end up playing this card at a high level. You can go turn one Griever, and if your opponent doesn't have like Une or Levy or like basically any like the water bounce cards, right? This card is so obnoxious, right? Like you have to discard a card every single turn. It's like kind of like Scale Toad, but even more obnoxious because if you have one card in hand, it gets rid of it. There's a water ice deck that people are trying out that's playing Rosa and like one of the new sages, and then a bunch of other like untapped stuff like Ash and whatever. To just like turbo discard basically. My big issue is that it is a little fragile to like Une, for example. But I think like in open deck lists, when you know your opponent doesn't have an answer to it, I think turn one Griever is going to be really annoying.
Yep.
Pretty much
I would
everything I would say.
I would try to find a way to give it like haste also, like the new
Mm-hmm.
colorless general.
Yeah.
The new light general. Sorry. We're talking about him later on.
Yeah.
Too, right?
I like the end. Yeah.
Yeah, but like any way to give this haste is like, mwah, so good.
Mhm.
So that everything that you guys mentioned has been identified as something that is potentially a deck. Sorry, my thing cut off for a moment, but so all those things, that is a real deck that is being tested. Yeah, that's where I'll leave it, because I know that people are pretty secretive with their decks going into Worlds, but I will say that that is a very serious consideration. I think this card is insane. I actually think Griever should have cost 5, but not for the reason you think. Cost 6 is actually significantly harder to get rid of than cost 5.
Oh yeah.
Cards that say cost 5 or less. Griever being 6 protects it from a lot of like Odins
Or
and stuff like that.
or Porum too, the blue one.
Porum,
Yeah.
right? So the fact
geez.
that decks that want to cast this early would have paid 3 cards from hand anyway if it cost 5 or 6. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I think this should have cost 5, so it's more it's exposed to more removal. 6 is surprisingly hard to get rid of. Surprisingly hard. I'm very high on Mono Lightning this set, and I've had to put some cards in my deck just to handle this card because I can't kill it.
Wow, that's
right.
I didn't even think of that. Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Like this
so,
this dodges the 5 CP Odin, I think it is, or which
the 5 CP Odin dodges it completely, right?
Wow.
If the new Bahamut's cease play is because of this card.
Yeah.
Because it removes it from the game, right?
Yeah.
And just restricts so much, like you're saying. So we used to have a very toxic deck that created a couple of bans that was Ice.
Yep.
Way back when. And this gives me that kind of same vibe of here's a turn one thing that's just going to get rid of your hand the entire game. Deal with it or lose. And also, if you deal with it, I also get to like time warp you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get to like, I get to dull free something and you discard a card. And for some reason or another, they decided, oh, she can't be chosen by summons there too.
Yeah, so you can't even.
No idea why.
You can't even kill her before she removes stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't even like, you know what I'm saying? You can't like the Bahamut that we're talking about. Like, you can't Bahamut her or something. Mm-hmm. Like, no, it's like, oh, I guess I'll wait for my turn and kill her, right? So, this combo is pretty pushed in my opinion. So we'll see how the meta adapts to it, because I think it makes some things. The existence of this makes some things close to unplayable. So
yeah, I agree. I think these are like probably the best legends in the set.
Yeah, I would think so. I have one more that I have one that I like more, but these are insane.
Mm-hmm. Setzer. So this is a 3 CP Cat 6 forward, 5 CP. Once per turn, you can cast a card removed by Setzer's abilities at any time you can normally cast it. And that's relevant when Setzer enters the field, choose up to 2 forwards in your break zone, remove them from game. So I mostly included this because I thought it was really stupid that they did not give this the Man in Black wording. I think this is unplayable because of that. And I think it would have been really, really cool if this had, like, you know, if this is off the field, you can still cast those cards once per turn.
I just want to say, you said 5 CP, it's 3 CP.
Oh, did I say 5 CP? Oh, yeah, no, yeah. It's 3 CP.
It's fine.
Yeah, but I agree with you, though.
Yeah.
I know people have talked a little bit. I think this card sucks. And the fact that it's Setzer, too, if it was any category 6, I'd be like, yeah, sure, you play it in lock. But it's like,
because the thing
is,
you're not
playing this over the backup.
Like, never in Cat 6. Yeah, like the thing that annoys me is that like Ice's only real good recursion is Shantoto, right? Does it have any other like good recursion without going off element?
Ice, other than the backup that grabs.
Eodolus.
Eodolus,
Yeah.
That's about it. And the fact that it's just, this is like one line of text from being at least sleeve testable, because the once per turn thing is bad. The fact that he's 5k, right?
I know.
He was 10k or something, I'd be like, okay, sure. But 5k once per turn, and if he leaves, no, man, like this card is not good in my opinion. So
it's so frustrating.
It is. I mean, art is gorgeous.
I know.
It would be so good if you could exile 2 things from your opponent's graveyard, and then can cast them.
Yeah, I think
that would be really cool.
Yeah, sure.
That's kind of more of like a wind and earth kind of thing, like with like the Cryo and the Beldat and stuff.
Yeah.
So especially like I feel like it would feel a little weird on ice, but I agree. It would be like a really
there's
cool
precedent
card.
for that. The water ice realm takes a monster from your opponent's
graveyard.
Yeah,
all right, yeah, this card sucks ass.
Yeah.
It's really good one.
I had to include some bad cards in here.
Yeah, please do.
All right. So this is another, this is a card in the DFF box, but is an Opus 21 card that I wanted to mention because I think it's also going to be pretty important. It's already shown up in some lists. So this is the 4CP Y'shtola, 8K, category 14 DFF. She is a Scion. If your opponent has 2 cards or less in their hand, Y'shtola gains haste. When Y'shtola attacks, choose a forward opponent controls, deal it 9k minus 1k for each card in your opponent's hand. So if they have 1 card, it deals 8k. If they have 2 cards, it deals 7k, etc. I think this card is super strong. And I think like we've already seen it show up in Ice Lightning, but I think this shows up in, like, I would play this in most Ice lists, honestly. Or most ice lists playing, discard cards like Weiss, Nero Weiss, and stuff like that.
Yep, this card is pretty insane. I think it's a reason, or part of the reason why Ice Lightning was in the winner Japan list. For some reason, they allowed this card to be played. I know that it came in the DFF box, but it's not a starter card. I was very surprised they permitted it in the deck, in the tournament. This card is. I personally really like the effects of do something minus something for each card in your opponent's hand, because it gives you an incentive for discard other than discard.
Yeah.
And this is a card that just does everything, right? It acts as a control card by removing your opponent's stuff, but it also gives you aggression by being a hasty attacker. And Ice Lightning is, like, by definition, that's what Ice Lightning does, right? It tries to out-resource you and then kills you with hasters, and she goes, I do both of those things in one card. So, very, very good card. And the art is just like 10 out of 10. So, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Like, you don't even need to play a lot of discard in aggro ice, because your opponent has to discard a lot of cards in their hand just to deal with the threats that you're putting on the board, right? So, like, you play, like, Nero Weiss. Honestly, I would just throw Y'shtola in. I don't even need any other discard.
Yeah, the Ice naturally just discards a lot. Nero Weiss does its thing.
Yeah. The new Rufus and Sephiroth as well.
Rufus, yeah. So all you need is, like, Rufus and what you're playing those cards anyway.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So it's just a shoe-in on most Ice decks for now, in my opinion.
Yeah. I guess the other big thing that this fills for Ice Lightning is removal. And we'll talk about another card, Irvine, later that also kind of does that. But outside of, like, Sephiroth and, I mean, I guess technically X-Death, right? Like, there aren't a lot of cards that remove forwards from your in Ice Lightning, if I'm remembering correctly. Or, like, kills forwards that your opponent has. Most of, like, your removal is, like, dull freezing your opponent's board, right?
The multicolor lightning can do it.
Oh, duh. Yeah. But this can do it much quicker.
It's tied to attacking too.
Yeah.
So this it does the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is pretty important. Pat, did you have anything to mention?
I don't have much to add. I just really like that the damage effect isn't tied to like hitting a dull forward only.
Oh my
which
god,
is,
yeah.
typically what ice has. So it's nice that this has escaped that.
Yeah, this
And,
card would be so much worse with that.
Yeah, but I agree with all your points.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about Shiva. So this is another card that I think is pretty interesting to analyze. So this is a 1 CP summon Shiva. If you cast Shiva, you may remove 4 ice cards in your break zone from the game as an extra cost. Choose a character, dull freeze it. If you paid the extra cost, return Shiva to its owner's hand. So I've heard people talk about this card and be like, oh, well, you're just gonna like dull freeze 5 things over the course of the game, and then, it's not like that good. The reason that I think this card is actually kind of good is it's kind of like a scalpel is kind of the way I would describe it. Like, this dull freezes exactly the thing that you need to dull freeze at exactly the time that you need it to, right? Like, your opponent is on 4 backups, or 3 backups, they play Tyro. You dull freeze the Tyro who's just searched like a wall or something, right? Or you dull freeze the exact like forward that's blocking your board from attacking in, like a wall, for example, right? And this, you'll just always have it in your hand basically over the course of the game. I think that this is probably like not bad, but I do want to hear both of your opinions about this card.
Okay, I guess I'll start. I personally really like this card.
Yeah.
It might not be strong or very well played. Well, first of all, this is my favorite art right now. By far, this card is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's insane. But I think if you're not using your break zone as a resource in ice, this is actually kind of interesting, right? Because it gives you some flexibility of what to do. This effectively could read 2 CP, remove 4 cards from your break zone, dull freeze 2 things. How good that is, I'm not sure. It's a Shiva. We always look at Shivas because we have Shiva synergy with other cards. Unfortunately, the Shiva synergy we have uses the break zone. So it's kind of a numbo there, right? Where it's like, I don't want to remove my other Shivas, right? I think where this would be interesting is like with the 4 CP Terra, because you can shotgun this card and then just get Terra's effect of dulling something and freezing something.
Mm-hmm.
So you could go, Terra, and then you go Shiva, dull freeze, so dull and freeze and dull freeze, and then Shiva again, dull and freeze and dull freeze, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically anything that says when you cast a summon, do X, this enables it.
Mm-hmm.
The 6 CP Une, whatever, that blinks your forward, right? You'll have like a permanent summon in your hand to, put something. Drooling when I say that. You blink something, and then next turn I still have the Shiva in hand. I'll blink something again, right? So it's interesting. I want more effects like these. Don't know how good it is, but I definitely want to see more of this in the future.
Yeah, I guess mentioning the Une, Pat, what do you?
You mean the 6 CP backup Une?
Yeah. What your favorite card in the game?
Yeah, that is my favorite card in the game. So for the listeners, I have a deck that it's like a 4 or 5 color deck that basically abuses 6 CP Une and really cheap summons and really strong ETB effects. So this fits pretty well into there. The only issue with that is that since there's so many colors in that deck, I wouldn't be able to get the rebuy that often.
Yeah, it would be like a different. It would be like a different kind of deck. I feel like.
Yeah. You narrow it to like 2 colors or something.
Yeah,
like
or even just 1 color.
Great, because it's 4 cards. It's not that much.
I guess.
So.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to play a summon-based deck with only ice in it, though. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it definitely fits in my Terra decks. So I have 2 Terra decks. One is Ice Water, and the other one's Ice Lightning.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't play traditional Ice Lightning. I play like the Terra summon casts Ice Lightning. And this fits right into both of them. Like the Ice Lightning one has a lot of Shiva synergy as well. But as you said, like if you rebuy it, you lose a lot of the Shiva count in the graveyard. But I'm still excited about this card. because like the dull freezing is like the best thing that those decks do.
Mhm.
And this just makes them do it more.
In the next landing, I assume you're running Man in Black as well, right? So
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
even if you don't rebuy her, having like on demand 1 CP dull freeze something and something can attack or block kind of like locks you a little bit out of the game if you're behind.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She kind of reminds me a bit of Sarah Mobius in that I feel like she's going to be like, you're going to play with her and you're going to be like, oh, I don't know how like good this card is. But then like your opponent is playing against her and you're just like, I don't, your opponent's just going to be like, I can't do a lot of the things that I want to do because I know my opponent has a 1 CP on demand dull freeze at like any point, right? I feel like this card's going to be sleeper kind of pretty good.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's talk about Rursan Arbiter. So this is a 5 CP type 0 forward 8K. You can't play this in Sid Alstein. I guess that's a spoiler for type 0. I never played the game. So it's a action ability for 0. Choose a forward, break it. You can only use this ability if your opponent has no cards in their hand during your turn and only once per turn. So once per turn, payoff for having, or once per turn cycle, I guess, payoff for having your opponent having 0 cards in their hand. Yeah, I think this card is okay. I'm curious what you two think about this card.
I'm on the okay side as well. I feel like it's sort of a win more.
Yeah,
right?
that's
Like,
how I feel about it.
You're already so far ahead if your opponent has no cards in hand, and you're just picking off a forward every turn. I just don't feel like it adds much to the game plan.
Like in my head, like what is this doing that Ishtola is not doing better?
Yeah.
I think the big thing is that it can't get Ahmad.
Meh.
Yeah. That's also how I feel.
I am buying it, Chief.
Yeah. No, so I think this card is I think the best text on this card is the fact that it costs 5 CP, and that means Ultimecia can exile.
Okay, fair. I'll give you that one.
Ishtola does not cost 5 CP, so yeah, I think it's okay. There's not too much else that I have to say about it, unless either of you have anything more to say.
Nope.
Clearly, it's kind of meh.
Yeah. Bard. So this is one of the standard unit 14 multiplayable cards that we got. 4 CP, ice, forward, 8K. 0 action ability. Choose 1 forward. It loses all abilities until the end of turn. And you can only use this once per turn. So this is Palom effect, except it's not tied to 5 or less. Or Porum effect. The two big things that I like, so I think the immediate comparison is Porum. I think the big differences are multiplayable, but 4 CP and isn't a growing threat. That said, I mean, Porum usually you don't really care about, like, if you're not playing twins, I don't think the Porum counters usually end up mattering. The fact that this is an 8K instead of a 4K when it comes in, or I guess 5K after the turn it comes in, is pretty good. I think specifically I like that this is an ice. I like that this is in ice in a color that's has some lock decks to it. So I'm curious how you two feel about this.
I'm happy that it exists, I guess. But I don't foresee it going anywhere unless we get to a point where like 2 ice decks are extremely tier 0, no one else can beat them, and then you play this for the mirror.
Yeah, for Griever. That's the main card I was thinking about.
Or something, but otherwise it's just too costly, I think. I think if this was a 2 CP 5K, I'd be like way more excited about it.
Okay. Yeah, 4 CP is a lot for a unit that is only, I guess, not even killing things, but it's still like reactive, I guess. Like it doesn't give you value.
No. Yeah, I agree.
you usually want your hate bearers to be like 2 mana.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. I also wish it was like, because using the activate ability gives them a window to respond anyway, right? So it's hard to use this on anything that with tap ability because they'll just tap it in response. I wish it was something like ETB, pick a forward. As long as Bard's on the field, it loses its abilities. Like I think that would have been.
We got. Didn't we get like a card, a water card that literally does that?
Yeah, but it was like really. I don't remember why, but it was like really bad.
3CP 7K, as long as it's on the field, it like blanks something.
Oh yeah.
And no one
It was like a type 0 card.
And no one uses it. So.
Oh yeah. It didn't do anything else. So
yeah, but like I feel like that would be better than like an activated ability. So like given that the other one isn't played, like I don't see this one being played either.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's fair. Let's talk about Reaper. I guess this is one of the other Cat 14 cards. Again, I just kind of included it because of similar to Bard, where it's just like a kind of a well, so I'll read it out. So it's 3CP 5K standard unit. When Reaper enters the field, select one of the two. Choose a dull forward of cost 3 or less, break it, or your opponent discards a card. So this isn't Thaumaturge, right? Because it costs 3. If this costs 2, obviously it would just be Thaumaturge. I think the fact, again, I didn't play during this time, so that's kind of why I included this, because I wanted to hear both of your thoughts about like sort of a multi-playable, your opponent discards a card forward. What you two thought about this, because like I said, I played after Turbo Ice got banned, so.
Limited, this is going to be pretty good. The in constructed, I'm trying to see it. I don't, because we just have better 3CP discard cards. And some 2CP discard cards that if you're going, the fact that it costs 3 and it's 5, it kind of like makes it not fit in an aggro deck, which is where you want those effects. And the fact that it's 5K doesn't fit in a mid-range deck where you would want it to be just a little bit beefier than that.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of missing a little bit a home right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and it doesn't like particularly excite me.
Yeah.
It excites anybody. I mean, it's a Reaper.
Yeah, no, like I said, I just kind of included it because of the similarities to the Thaumaturge, so I kind of agree. Like, I don't think this really sees play anywhere right now, but I'm curious, I guess, just while we're talking about this, like, if this costs 2 CP instead, right? You know,
broken.
How obnoxious was Thaumaturge?
No, it's not about the Thaumaturge. It's like the fact that it's 2 CP, discard 1 for 5, or break something that costs 3 or less. No, that's insane.
Yeah. Okay.
No. See what I'm saying? It's very hard to balance. At 3, it's like, at 2, it's like, oh, it's busted. I just slammed 3 of these turn 1.
Yeah.
Like, right, yeah. So that's my thoughts on that. I do see we might be moving into win, but I think honestly, I'm surprised. I think you missed one of the best ice cards this set, believe it or not.
Hold on, let me pull up set.
So yeah, go to FF Decks and just search for ice, because there's a couple of cards I like. I'm very excited for ice this set, as people might tell.
All right. Opus 21 search.
Yeah.
Is it Red Mage?
Red Mage is incredible.
Okay. I have played against this, and it seemed all right in mono ice, but I haven't played against it outside of mono ice.
So if an ice deck if an aggressive ice deck exists, Red Mage is in it, right? Yeah. So now we have multiple, and you'll see that we have 2 in this set. If you look a little bit above, you'll see snow as well. We have multiple.
Oh, right. Yes, no.
Yeah, so we have multiple 2 CP forwards that dull freeze characters. So I'm including Red Mage, I'm including Snow, and I'm including Last Wall and the Knight, right? So there's a lot of decks that just won't be able to play the game if they go first, play a backup or 2, and you go Red Mage into Last Wall, or Red Mage into, or you go the girl who forgot her name in Ice into Snow.
Yeah.
Right? Ice got some very good aggressive tools this set, and I'm very excited to see what people do with it. I think if I'm playing a cheap low to the ground Ice, I'm playing the girl who forgot her name with Snow. I might be playing Squall because you'll also be playing the light guy that gives him haste. I'd be playing Red Mage. I'd be playing Last Will and the Knights, and just dull freezing your board, swinging for game, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not an exciting play style, but I think it is more viable than it's been in many, many, many sets. I also expect someone smarter than me to do something with that 5 CP Walk Terra that searches 2 ice summons of different costs, but I'm not smart enough for that. So, I'm like I saw that, I'm like kind of excited for this. It just searches 2 things, and it's kind of like a 1 CP. Maybe not, but
yeah, my big worry. So I guess I'll read some of these cards out. 5 CP 8K Terra. She searches 2 ice summons on entry, and she also has like a S ability to kill something, but you have to discard a summon. My main worry for this though is that it like ice summons kind of suck.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's someone smarter than me, or maybe in future sets, if ice summons become better, then you got a decent searcher that searches 2 of them, which is really cool. One more card that I wanted to mention is Lufenian.
Really?
Very, very low to the ground, very low backups. Like, again, aggressive ice decks.
Yeah.
Lufenian is a card where if you're only running, let's say, old Turbo Ice used to run like 5 backups or something like that, right? And that deck would have killed for Lufenian. It would have killed for it. Maybe it's outdated, but the fact that, again, in an aggressive ice deck where you have Red Mage, you have Snow, you have Last Will and the other Knights. If you go second, your opponent is playing, like, again, gentleman's game. Let's say you're playing Walls or something, and you go back up, search back up, and you go, okay, Lufenian discard, Last Will, Dull Freeze, have fun, right? That's the type of game that's the type of deck that used to be strong enough to warrant some bans where they would just take away your resources early, so you couldn't play the game while they hit you. I'm interested to see if those decks are not very good, then maybe there's a consideration to revisit some of the bans, right? Because we can build them again. We have the tools to build them again. If they're bad, then maybe we can say, maybe Thaumaturge could come off the ban list or something.
Yeah.
Because I think that type of deck needs to exist to keep other decks in check.
Yeah.
Like me. So I'm very excited for Ice this set. Honestly, this is the type of Ice deck that I like to play. And honestly, I'm super, like, going Girl Who Forgot Her Name turn 1 into Snow.
Yeah,
I love it. It's so good.
It's weird. I don't know why I didn't include these cards, because you're right. Like, I've played against this in playtesting, and it has felt kind of really annoying for exactly like you said, the Girl Who Forgot Her Name into Snow, Dull Freeze, whatever backup I just played turn 1, right?
And then if they go like next turn Squall into the guy that gives them haste, you're like, I lose because I don't have backups. I took 4 damage. What do I do? Right?
Yeah.
I have the only deck I've been testing somewhat is an Ice Earth, very low to the ground 2 cost 4 deck that I'm very excited for. So
yeah,
maybe I'm biased. So, but I will say, regardless of that, Red Mage is a very good card. Dull Freeze on entry. The party attack is not as relevant, but it can be. So we'll see.
Okay. Because I've played against this, and like, like you said, the party attack is like interesting, but the big thing is the ETB Dull Freeze whatever backup I just played.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess, Pat, do you have anything to mention about these ice cards before we move on?
Only thing is the Terra. Like, I just feel like any ice deck playing good ice summons is probably playing the other Terra.
Yeah.
I just wish it wasn't named Terra.
Yeah.
Because I'd much rather be playing 4 CP Terra over that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the effect does have a lot of room to explore. Mm-hmm. So excited, as Emmanuel said, for people smarter than us to figure that out.
Yeah.